This is Telling the Story, a podcast dedicated to exploring faith, spirituality, arts, and culture, hosted by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for joining us for our podcast series discussing the themes and ideas expressed in the beloved story of Babette's Feast by Danish author Karen Blixen. Throughout the series, we'll talk with artists and special topical guests discussing things such as refuge and sanctuary, the art of hospitality, the importance of cultural exchange, beauty and pleasure, and the power of living in community. What makes our podcast unique is that you'll also get an insider's look at the many artistic and production decisions that are made in putting together a theatrical production as we rehearse a new play adaptation of Babette's Feast. So sit back and settle in for a stimulating dive into deep ideas and the world of theater magic. I'm so excited to be back for another podcast series, this time about Babette's Feast, a beautiful story that Ninth Hour Theatre Company, as we record this, is currently rehearsing for a live, fully staged theater production. I'm joined today by special guests, and I look forward to our conversation about the story and the context and background of Babette's Feast, as well as some of the themes and ideas that are expressed in the story and in the play. So I'm joined by SHAUNA AKKERMANS. SHAUNA is an artistic associate of Ninth Hour Theatre Company. SHAUNA studied theater at Bishop's University and has completed Baby Clown at One North Clown and Creation. Ninth Hour credits include being part of the directing team for the development of the original theatrical work Frankenstein AI in 2025, associate director of The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 2024, assistant director for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in 2023, assistant director and voice of the youth in Beauty Will Save the World 2024. What haven't you done, SHAUNA? SHAUNA works diligently to create a courageous space in the rehearsal hall where actors can take full-body risks and do the dangerous work of making theater. So excited to have you, SHAUNA.
Yay,
welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Looking forward to chatting more with you about Babette's Feast.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to mention, which is so important, which is why SHAUNA is here. SHAUNA is the director of Babette's Feast. So it's so great to have the director here with us.
Yeah, very excited.
Awesome. And then I'm also joined by KATIE IRVINE.
Hi.
Yes. Hi, KATIE. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
KATIE is the dramaturge for Babette's Feast. So we're going to get into what that means. But KATIE is a theater artist, having previously been part of the development of brand new original work with Ninth Hour Theatre Company, Frankenstein AI. KATIE also performed as Fra Michael in 2024's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. They graduated from York University in 2020 with an honors Bachelor of Arts degree in performance creation and research, a minor in English, and a 2-year academic specialization in new play dramaturgy. Then, from St. Lawrence College with an Ontario College advanced diploma in music theater performance. What haven't you studied? What haven't you done, KATIE? KATIE wants to thank their family, friends, and partner for their continued support as they pursue her passion for the performing arts. So good to have you with us, KATIE.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited for this opportunity. I've never podcasted before, and I haven't led a production as a dramaturge since 2020 when I graduated from university. Okay. So it's great to jump back in.
Okay, well, let's get right into that then.
Yay!
Dramaturgy. What is dramaturgy, KATIE?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. It's actually a funny story that I was discussing with our actors the other day at rehearsal. When I initially applied for the dramaturgical specialization at York, I didn't even really know what that meant or what it was. The application process was just to write a hypothetical letter to a playwright about a piece that they had done and ask them questions about it that you felt like the piece itself didn't address. And I thought that sounded really interesting. So I thought, okay, that doesn't, cockily, I guess. I thought that doesn't seem too difficult. Let's give it a try. And it ended up working out great. I got in. I got to work with the amazing Judith Rudikoff as my dramaturgical mentor. And here we are. But the way that I kind of approach and define dramaturgy is that it's to help playwrights and help the artists who are bringing a piece to life reach their full creative potential. Or more simply, if you're working on a text in development, you can think of it as play editing as well.
I know I've always found it helpful when I've directed plays. And Ninth Hour has had dramaturgy in almost all their plays.
That's right.
Since the beginning. We just believe it's so important to dig deep into the themes and understand what the story's telling. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's important for the cast as well, I guess, right?
1,000,000%. As someone who has worked with the amazing George Dutch on the productions I've performed in with Ninth Hour, his research and the discussions that he helps facilitate, I feel like we're essential to our success as actors in those productions.
Shout out to George. Yes.
Love
Thanks,
him.
Katie.
You're welcome.
No, that's great. And so yeah, the two of you here, you're sort of getting the actors up to speed with what sort of themes are important, what you want to highlight. Shauna, why don't you tell me a bit about your role? You're the director. So what is that looking like for you so far? What are you up to?
So currently we are still in the very rudimentary phases of blocking. So which is just sort of the choreography, the business on stage of who is coming and going when and from where and what are they holding and where are they putting it. So we're through the first half of the show right now in sort of the rough block phase. Tonight we're starting to dive into the second half of the show. And that's sort of where we're at currently in that process. It's fun, and you see all the little seeds of the things you're trying to plant for later and the things to come and the things to layer in for later. Yeah.
And how many are in the cast?
We have 10.
Yes.
So we have 3 named players, so the 2 sisters and Babette, of course. So the 2 sisters being Martine and Philippa.
Okay.
And then the other actors are players who act as narrators and form the town and form the congregation in the church and the guests at the dinner, and everybody else is sort of playing a hodgepodge of roles, ages and genders sort of mixed all in those tracks as well.
And is that how the play is written, or is that is it your choice to do it that way? What's behind that?
Yeah, the play is written with 6 narrators, and we're using 7 to sort of help split the load a little bit, to help carry the load between the actors. So it is written to be 6. We're choosing, or flexible is also what the other note is, or as many as you like. So every single one of those named characters and every single one of those, like you could have 20 people on stage doing the show if you wanted to. I think, being at the Gladstone and in the size and the space of that beautiful theater, 10 is going to be really perfect. And also having a dinner table big enough to fit 20 people is a feat that I think I'm not interested in taking on. So 10 is good.
I think our stage manager would kill us.
Yeah.
Our props designer would not be happy.
Wow. So it sounds very much like a true ensemble theater. Actors playing different roles, the different characters. You mentioned different ages, different genders, but then there's 3 named characters, Babette, and then the 2 sisters, and we'll get into maybe more of their relationship and who they are. Martine, you said, and Philippa?
And Martine and Philippa, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I look forward to getting into some of the nitty gritty of who the characters are and what the story is. Katie,
yes,
Babette's Feast. Where does this story come from? Who wrote it? What's its origins and background?
That's such a great question. Thank you for asking. So, this piece has gone through many different iterations as it's been adapted for different mediums. So it started as a short story. It was written by the Danish author Karen Blixen, but it was published under her pen name Isak Dinisen, which she used in English-speaking countries. It was initially published in 1950 for the Ladies' Home Journal as a sort of serial publication. So it came in multiple different issues, split up. But eventually,
interesting. Like different chapters almost.
Exactly.
But it's a short story still? Or?
It is,
Okay.
yeah. And then eventually she amalgamated all of those different serial publications into the full short story. And that was published in her volume Anecdotes of Destiny in 1958. And some of her other notable works, which was such a crazy moment for me, was Out of Africa, which was my mom's favorite movie of all time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She did. So she wrote the original memoir, Out of Africa, which is about her life in Kenya, living on a coffee plantation, and
So
the break.
Like autobiographical?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very autobiographical. Some of her other notable ones are The Seven Gothic Tales. This was super popular in Denmark and the US. It's another series of short stories.
Gothic Tales. Cool.
Yes. And it's set in the 19th century. The majority of her works are set in the past.
Okay.
And then there's also Shadows on the Grass, which is sort of an expansion of Out of Africa. But it's so short in comparison to her full memoir that these days it often gets amalgamated into a single publication with Out of Africa.
And you mentioned she likes to set stories in the 19th century. Is that what you
Yes,
said?
that is correct.
And I wonder why. Like, I wonder if there was like a romanticism for that period or whatever that she might have had or something. I wonder, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, obviously, as we discussed in her nonfiction publication, she grew up on a colonial plantation. So I wonder if there's some kind of connection to that past that she then lived in her own personal experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
So she grew up in Kenya? Is that what you...
No, that she traveled there in her
So-
adulthood with her husband because it was his idea to purchase the coffee farm. And then eventually, if you've seen the film or you've read the book, their marriage breaks down. He was a philanderer. He unfortunately gave her an STI that left her with chronic health issues for the rest of her life. But we persevere. And she managed to gain lots of success as a writer before her passing in 1962.
In 62, okay. Yeah, and my understanding is she's quite beloved by, like in Denmark, by Danish people.
Absolutely.
She's kind of like a Canadian, or like our version of like a, like a Margaret Atwood or,
1,000,000%.
or something like that.
1,000,000%. And it's funny that you say that because she was actually nominated multiple times for the Nobel Prize for Literature, but was beat out at the end. So in that sense, she is kind of like our Margaret Atwood.
And they don't give Nobel Prizes to dead people. So
Exactly.
they don't give them posthumously. So.
No.
Okay.
She was born in 1885, so I wonder if part of her like attraction to the 19th century is this like nostalgia for her youth and like growing up remote, and her dad was like this hunter and like big adventureman. So she's very opposite than the father figure in Babette's Feast.
Yes.
But he passed when she was really young, and then she was like raised and taught by her grandmother.
Yeah.
I think her maternal grandmother, like her mom's mom. And so, she had like a very different life than really what she's written about. And I think there's like this nostalgia and romanticism for like this country life and this, this time before.
I think we're all like that to some degree, aren't we? Sometimes, we
totally.
romanticize our childhood or where we grew up, or I know I do, and it's hard not to. Like, times were better than you thought. You opted things, and that's very subjective,
And Katie, you said she died in 1962 because something was published in 1963. So someone published something for her.
That was a posthumous publication.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting that like that she used different pen names.
Yes. I was just about to get into that.
She has like 4 names or something.
Almost nothing of her notable works is published under her Christian name or her birth name, Karen Blixen. The ones that we would probably know, because in pretty much any English-speaking country where she was disseminating her work, she would use Isak, her male name.
Okay.
Then, if she was publishing something in a German-speaking country, she would use the name Tanja Blixen. Then, randomly, there was 2 other ones that she liked to use as well. She had another male one who is Pierre Andrezel.
Oh.
And then there's like almost a non-binary one. Like, I don't even know what to attribute this name. And it's a single name, like almost like a Madonna or a Cher.
Prince.
And it's Osceola.
Just that.
Just Osceola.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Blixen is her married name, right?
Correct.
And Dinisen is her
That's her
maiden
birth
name.
Yeah.
So the pen names also reflect like her married name and her maiden name.
So born Karen Dinisen and
Yes.
then married a Blixen.
Yes, that's correct. That's
okay.
the coffee farmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
The coffee farmer. On Blixen, the
Yes.
coffee farmer.
Exactly.
Oh. Interesting. Okay. Wow. So Babette's Feast then, where does this story take place and when?
Oh, I'm so
What is the
glad that
context
you
of
asked.
it? And if anyone's not familiar with it, there was an Oscar-winning movie.
There sure was,
in
the
the
1987
80s. Yeah.
movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, there's not a lot of words in it. It's a very visual movie.
It is,
Yeah.
Yeah, gorgeously shot. And it's actually funny because I didn't even know until I was prepping for this podcast that there was another movie adaptation before that one,
Whoa.
which was an Orson Welles movie.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so it's a 1960s French movie. And it's only an hour long, which would be the shortest movie he's ever directed before. And that one is called Une Histoire Immortelle, or The Immortal Story. So that one it takes more sort of thematic ideas and some of the characters from the story, and then Orson puts his own twist on it. Whereas the 1987 movie is a much more faithful adaptation of the book.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's set in Norway in a village called Berlevåg, a very isolated, small community.
Fictional place? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But based on a lot of different villages that already exist within the community. But I think that they wanted to create something fictional so there could be this is something we always talked about with my mentor in dramaturgy, that specificity breeds universality in work. So I think that the idea of creating this very specific fictional work, fictional place, then helps you as a reader apply it to your own place where you live and exist.
In contrast to choosing a real place, you mean?
Exactly.
Like being very specific about a fictional place, but could be anywhere?
Exactly.
Oh, that's interesting. Say it again. Specificity.
Specificity breeds universality.
Universality.
That was one of Judith's mantras.
Oh, love
It's like
in our
Narnia.
dramaturgical practice.
Yeah, it is like Narnia.
It is,
Yes,
exactly.
That's right. That's right.
And hey, it's got some magic to it when
That's
Babette
right.
shows up too,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But
Okay, so it's set in Norway.
Yes.
In a small place, small village. Okay, and in what year did you say again? Or?
so it's set in the 1800s. It's not incredibly specific about exactly what year, but in my estimation and based on my research, the late 1800s leading into the early 1900s.
Okay.
It spans Martin's and Philippa's life.
Exactly.
So from them as young girls to like 30 years later, we're sort of hopping in and out of time and back and forth. So it's sort of roughly in that like 1860, 1870 to like 1890,
1890s.
1900 kind of time.
And
Yeah.
the play spans, how long the play spans time as well?
Yes.
Yes.
So we jump from the women being in their older years. I mean, older when you were in 1890, it's probably like 40 or 50. We wouldn't consider that. That's more middle aged now
Of
by
course.
our standards. That's not old to us,
Of
really.
course.
But yeah, so they sort of are in their older years, graying and stuff in sort of towards the end of the show. And you kind of jump back and forth between them as young girls. So they're probably, of wedding age, somewhere between like 16 and 20 is probably where they would be in those scenes. So,
And people listening, I'm sure, would wonder, how are you going to make that clear? How would you convey the aging and the different time periods through theater?
Yeah. I mean, I think the aging of the girls specifically, because they are not really going to, they literally go from, in one scene, they go from being young girls going to their older selves and then go back to being their young girls, all being on stage all straight through. So there's no opportunity for costume changes. There's no opportunity to like run backstage and draw some granny lines on or anything.
Granny lines.
So it is about the actors physicalizing that and finding a way to change their energy from, being in that older, more mature space to the younger, maybe I'm falling in love energy. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like it's like a challenge, but the actors you're saying are up to the challenge of physicalizing different ages and genders. You pointed out as well.
I mean, these things are always a challenge, but I mean, if theater wasn't challenging, like, what would we do it?
No.
And it sounds like the play style with these storytellers, it sort of lends itself well to like sort of telling the audience a story, right?
And that's the other thing about it too, is that it's built into the script that a narrator goes, when the girls were young. And so then so the girls are younger now. And then, in their years after their father has passed. And then, their father leaves the stage and the girls are older now. So it's not only on the actors physicalizing it. We are also showing and telling at the same time, because that's how they developed the script originally.
And there's even moments where they're referring to themselves in third person, like narrating their own behavior.
Yeah, this is a pattern. This is
interesting.
A pattern in the script that, very like Shakespearean aside kind of roots in this of breaking out of the scene and addressing the audience directly to, have a soliloquy to bring us into that inner world. They don't go on for as long as Shakespearean soliloquies do, but it's that that theater conceit of like, I'm still standing on stage in the same scene as everybody else, but because I'm directing this at the audience instead of the other actors. We're seeing that this is for the audience and not for the other.
Yeah, it's like an interior moment, right?
Yeah, that we're let into.
That's something I really love about this script, is that it has an insane amount of meta theatricality to it, but it still is accessible. And I find that it really helps guide the audience on that journey. Even just from reading it, I didn't even see the actors perform it until this past Monday. And then just seeing bodies in a space bringing these words off the page and onto the stage really affirmed that for me. And knowing that this play premiered off Broadway in 2018, it makes a lot of sense that they would be willing to take some textual and narrative risks in this way, but still wanting to make sure that the audience is along for the ride.
Well, tell me about that. So it premiered in 2018, this play adaptation?
Yes, it did.
So who wrote it? Who created this?
Oh, thank you for asking.
Who created the play adaptation? Was there one before that? Or
no, there was not. This is the one and only theatrical adaptation so far.
So excited! I remember to see that there was an adaptation of it, because I watched the movie like 10 or 15 years ago, recommended to me by an older friend of mine. For other reasons other than just thought I would find it beautiful, as an artist, as someone who's different, and another. I just really enjoyed it and related so much with the whole thing and the faith aspects in the show and that sort of thing in the movie and in the story. But tell me about this adaptation. Either of you,
absolutely. So it was originally, of course, it's based off of Karen's book, and actually passages of the entire story are lifted right from her story verbatim into the script, along with some additional text, some supporting material. So it was conceived and developed by a theater artist named Abigail Killeen, and the actual script itself was written by Rose Courtney. So through a series of workshops that were led by Abigail, they went from workshopping it with actors to then having it premiere off Broadway in 2018. But I believe that the process for auditioning and bringing it from the page to the stage began back in 2016.
Okay, right. Like anything, it takes a couple years to get an original work going.
We're still cooking.
And they're from Portland, right? That group?
That is correct.
Yeah, they're from Portland. So they're not a New York-based group. So this is also another interesting layer to this story, is that whenever an off-Broadway production is given to a group that is outside of New York, there's a certain amount of acclaimed success, because they came from Maine.
Portland, Maine. Or Portland, Oregon? Or Portland,
Oregon. Now you're quizzing me on my U.S. geography. That's not what we're here to discuss.
That's not what we're here to discuss. True. That wasn't on the list.
The hipster Portland.
You didn't give me those questions.
Yeah. I think there's a Portland, Maine.
There is.
I don't know. Portland. Okay. I know it's Portland. Right. So, to get anything outside of New York onto Broadway is
a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. And was it well received?
It was, absolutely. So I think that one of the things that really appealed to people, because I think there was some trepidation going into it, because they were really treating it like a period piece. Like they have a website with accessible photos and production notes that's still live online. Cool. And they are in full period garb. Really going for realness. So I think initially audiences were kind of intimidated by that. They thought it might be kind of like you said earlier, Shauna, sort of a Shakespearean thing where the language would be really dense and dated and inaccessible to a modern audience. But it's not. I mean, the story is written in plain English. Yes, there's beautiful prose, but it's so easy to follow along and understand. And the story is so simple, but also has so much depth in terms of its thematic elements, the motifs that are included, the symbolism throughout it, and also, of course, its connection to spirituality, that I think that people were very pleasantly surprised and they loved it.
It was more accessible than people thought.
Exactly.
And speaking of which, so what's your vision, Shauna, for staging it? What are you doing to stage it? What's the setting you're putting it in? How's it going to look? What can people expect?
Yes. So, to start, we're doing we're not going to be as specific about the time because I also saw those production photos. They are in very period specific colors and, like true vintage.
Yeah. Like when
pieces.
They reference, you're more beautiful without a bonnet on. Oh yeah, they got bonnets.
They got bonnets and everybody's wearing. And,
they got bonnets.
They do.
And not only period, but also location, because you can see in the hats that they are very Norwegian, in the style of their hats. So they're really big and would be, difficult for us. They would be difficult and specific for us to source. But the other thing too is that the show spans, 40 to 50 years, somewhere in the we're jumping back and forth between 30 or so years apart with more time on either end of that. So, we're sort of going a little more looser with the time period, sort of going roughly 1870s, 1890s, and just sort of being soft about the time. The play is also soft about the time. Part of the gift of the text is that we're soft about the time. So it is going to be period, but sort of as soft about it as we can be. It's not there. People aren't going to be having cell phones. They're not going to be wearing space buns or jean jackets.
Okay.
Shots fired officially at Hunchback of Notre Dame.
No shots. Just saying. It's going to be very contrasting to what we did for Hunchback. Is more the point. It's very, very contrasting.
You're not making it modern day, contemporary set in New York City today.
No,
you're going for a looser. It is somewhere else, some other time.
Yeah,
vibe.
Yeah, and the other part of the artistic vision, which is a short essay essentially. It's not so to boil it. To boil the artistic vision down to a couple of sentences, it is a blank stage that is a blank storybook page. So we are going for a blank white set, which is opposite of what we normally assume in theater with a blank stage. Normally, blank theater stages are black.
Yes.
So we are going white psych, white floor, and very minimal but specific set pieces. So we have some tables and, a door frame and some window frames to sort of create the spaces. The idea being that these are sort of the whole goal of this is to sort of look like it is coming off of a blank page.
Okay.
She's lifted the story from the blank page. We're lifting the story from the book. And so that's sort of the whole, that's where the full white came from, is coming as we're lifting it off the page. So, only the set is white. Everything else is sort of living in the warm sepia tones, so that, earth tones. They wouldn't have been in, they wouldn't have had access to dyes for their clothing. So there's like no real bright colors in their clothing. And then, we sort of move towards the feast. And so, we have tables we have a table spot for everybody and chairs for everybody. And then the feast is, and we won't spoil the feast part.
Right.
I think,
Yes.
I think that's the part that we save for the actual production. But the feast, the feast is going to be a lot of work. There's a lot of prop pieces and there's a lot of pieces involved in that. And it's going to be really exciting. So,
yeah. And just, listening into some of the text, it's uplifting. Some of it's quite rich in the things that some of the characters say that are like, there's moments where you're just like, oh, that's so beautiful that they said that. But I see here that, you studied clown.
Yes.
You're actually quite funny, as well as being an awesome director and intelligent about so many topics, but you're also extremely funny. So what's rehearsals like, and what's your directing style? Like, are you bringing any of the clown in? Is the play even funny? Can people expect to laugh?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So in short, the play is funny. The play is very, very funny.
You wouldn't expect. Right?
You wouldn't
Based on what
expect it.
about.
It's pretty, especially because it is about such a cloistered community and such a sanitized setting.
Yes.
And they're remote, it's cold, there's snow. Like, you don't picture that like remote snow laden village as like a very funny
and
place.
also like everyone has no money. Everyone is denying themselves earthly pleasures and a means of attaining salvation or spiritual enlightenment. That doesn't sound very fun.
No.
But hey.
But but everybody has a sense of humor. They're funny about themselves. They're funny about each other. They're self-deprecating in some places. They're teasing others in some places. So it is funny. There are very, very funny moments
and
in
the
it.
actors are funny themselves.
And of course they are. Yeah. The cast is beautiful and they're very funny and they know where the jokes are. So now, in terms of clown, and I'm always the person who's like, but clown. So it's not
what people think, right?
And this show by no definition is a clown show. But ultimately approaching the work from a place of play and discovering the show is sort of like the journey that we're on. I think approaching from a space of like, okay, here's what we're working on. We're starting with the scene in the church and sort of discovering what that looks like as a process together, as opposed to dictating like step for step and word for word, like every single moment that happens, just sort of playing with it first and then sort of shaping it into the final thing that goes on stage. I know we cite Baby Clown and we cite Pachinko, and I work with a lot of the exercises that like I've learned from the Pachinko canon. Anybody who is a Pachinko clown or has any of those would look at this on the final version on stage, and it's not a clown show, but we get there through essentially what I personally refer to as like Pachinko and scene study. So there's mask exercises and physical exercises and, cause it's all, to me, I find developing a character and developing staging more accessible if you start, physically first instead of intellectually.
Interesting. Which is not how it's not how most people work, it seems.
No. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because it is sort of it is a thing that I run into when you're working with someone. This is like you got to flex your communication style. You got to flex your directing style. Right. You do run into this where people are look to you as a director to be like on the word, lift your hand up and put your, and then put it on your head. And then when you say the word and, put your hand on the table. And it's like, I just like don't work from a space of like that
so specific, prescribed.
I like to be specific. Yeah. We have a specific place, like the sister's house is in a specific space on stage. Yes. And every time we return to the sister's house, we're in the same space on stage. That is a specific choice.
Right.
So we're working with a specificity, but it's allowing the actors to make choices instead of me making every single choice along the way
That
for
would
them.
be so exhausting as a director if you had to make every single choice for every single actor.
I mean, yes, and then also some people do work like that, and then also some actors are used to working in a room where their director is that specific.
Me.
And
in my previous practice.
Yeah.
Yes. And can I just
You
say,
as a director or as an
no,
actor?
as an actor,
Oh,
I
you
was
were-
used to, I mean, it's not like I have a large body of professional work, but I did community theater as a child. I did high school drama. And then once I was in post-secondary, then I got the opportunity to work with some industry professionals in the Canadian musical theater industry. And 1,000,000%, that was the way that we were always taught to work. And as a performer who has an issue sometimes with over intellectualizing things, the way that Shauna likes to work, because I've worked with her as my director before, was really refreshing for me. And it really helped me shake off that over intellectualization and instead just really get down to the text. And that was very personally helpful for me.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Thank you.
Yay,
You're welcome.
Shauna. I hear the laughter at rehearsal. It was like, what did I miss? What did I miss?
Yeah, I know. Katie and I in the same room. It's just like we could get kicked out of a show.
Oh, I joked at one point we were like the Statler and Waldorf of Ninth Hour.
Yeah.
We just couldn't help it. We're up there in the box going, ho, 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 every 5 seconds.
Maybe you should sit together when you finally watch Babette.
And that
front row.
Yes.
Front row it. No.
that's the other thing. Well, and then that's the other thing about the process to me is like, if it's not fun, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
And
100,000,000%.
and
yeah.
I just I just like any time that it's like getting into like that amount of working the same 3 lines over and over again in order to like really nail the like it's like it and listen, sometimes it is that important. It's a safety thing. You're doing something specific for a cue. It is worth it to do that work when something else is dependent on it. If it's because you're trying to find a specific spot in the performance, like play and exploration scene to me feels like such a more valuable tool to find something that works instead of trying to like brute force it into something.
I agree. And also as an actor, the ability to make those choices is so personally empowering. And I love to work in that collaborative environment because it feels like my artistic vision and my voice matters in addition to the creative team. And things have changed a lot in the performing arts industry, even in the last 10, 15 years. But when I started, even as a kid, the mentality was you keep your mouth shut, you speak when it's your line, and you do as you're told.
Like a pylon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's so nice to actually feel like you're a real part of the artistic process.
Yeah, I think it's important for creating anything, art especially, like this idea, like there's a spiritual concept of God as creator, but us as co-creators with God to make something. And I like this idea of collaboration. The word co, right, is always in all these words, cooperation. And there is something so beautiful about, Khan wrote the story.
Yes.
People adapted it to, Abigail adapted it to the stage.
Yes.
The director is interpreting that adaptation with a particular vision. The designers are going to interpret the director's vision and co-create. And then lastly, but not least, and I know like at Ninth Hour, we call our actors artists. We always refer to them as artists because we want them to be part of the creation, the creative aspect of the show and to have ownership over it. Like, and they're not just pylons being moved around on a board. So I do agree with you both. I just love that style of like, you get to like interpret the director and make some choices, and the director can say, not that choice.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our prerogative.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I love it when actors take big risks and I'm like, you know what? It's like, what a beautiful big risk. Let's do 20% of that.
Yep.
It's, I think it's like a gift as an actor to be able to be in that space. And it's also, like a real privilege and honor to be able to be the one facilitating that space as well for others. Like it's a real joy. So.
Yeah, and so before we dig into some of the themes of the story, yeah, and thanks for sharing about your vision, Shauna, and the way you want to work and the way you are working, and how the plays all as we record this, it's being rehearsed. It's Shauna was saying it's half. It's pretty much you've dug into at least half the scenes, right? That's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, we've rough blocked half of it, so we've worked our way through the first half. So,
yeah, that's great. So why don't we let's talk about the story. What is the story of Babette's Feast? Who are the characters? What is the plot? What is going on? Anyone want to tackle that? You are listening to Telling the Story, a podcast dedicated to exploring faith, spirituality, arts, and culture, hosted by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in Ottawa, Canada. We'll return in a moment with the rest of our discussion.
Ninth Hour Theatre Company presents Beauty Will Save the World, a brand new musical audio drama for the whole family. Embark on a seafaring adventure and thought-provoking cautionary tale about the importance of passing on beauty to the younger generation, where relationships once lost are found again, when tested to choose what they stand for and who they will stand with.
Beauty will save the world! I've felt it! I've lived it!
Laughter, action, and tears, reminding us about the sacred things that make life worth living. To listen to full episodes or exclusive behind-the-scenes content, go to beautywillsavetheworld.ca.
I want to more than just survive. I want to hope and feel alive. I want to live, truly live.
beautywillsavetheworld.ca.
And now, back to the discussion. Let's talk about the story. What is the story of Babette's Feast? Who are the characters? What is the plot? What is going on? Anyone want to tackle that? Yeah.
I can jump in if you'd like.
Yeah.
So as Shauna previously mentioned, there's 3 named sort of pivotal characters who are some of our most central figures in the story. There's the 2 sisters, Martine and Philippa, who are the pillars of this community in Berlevåg. They're carrying on the work that their father, who was a dean, had started in their childhood of helping the community achieve spiritual enlightenment through asceticism. So according to their religion, they deny themselves worldly pleasures because they feel that that is the best way to be closest to their God.
And what religion are they, or denomination?
Protestant.
Protestant? Okay.
Yes. And then there's...
Is it Lutheran specifically?
Yes, it is.
I thought I read it. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I like what you just said. And there certainly is religious communities today that also believe that and also practice
Absolutely.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the universality of it, right? Is that even though it is something that is specific to this community and to their faith, it's still something that I think a lot of folks can identify with, even if they haven't necessarily experienced that themselves. They're aware that there's other religious sects who do practice that same sort of self-deprivation.
Okay.
And then
denying yourself pleasures, certain
yes,
pleasures,
worldly
right?
pleasures. So then you can achieve all the pleasure in the afterlife.
I see. Okay.
And then there's Babette, our titular Babette, who is Roman Catholic. And she is sort of our outsider in a strange land. She comes from Paris. She doesn't speak the language of the villagers. She has completely different ideas about how to be close to her God. And in her opinion, sharing and indulging in pleasure as a group is a way to foster connection and become closer to God. And originally, even though the villagers are generally, polite, respectful towards her upon her arrival, they don't agree with that at all.
No.
But once we get to this titular feast, which is one of the most pivotal moments of the show, all of a sudden, all of these walls and barriers break down amongst the people. Old grudges are forgiven, and they open themselves up to a new experience. And it's something that's very transformative and beautiful for everybody.
And eating together, it's so interesting that it's the feast, right? Because eating together does that. It makes people laugh, people connect. It's important to eat together. Communities do it. Families do it. There's something healthy about it. There's something bringing people together. Food, bringing like the pleasure of food. We all need to eat after all.
Of course.
Just enjoying it together. And then, of course, so much like religious symbolism or spiritual symbolism or even political symbolism and like breaking bread with someone. Like we all know what we mean by that, at least in English speaking culture, that it doesn't mean we're literally going to like get a piece of bread and break it. Like, I mean, we could.
We could.
That is communion.
Exactly.
Like in the word communion, that is, in the Catholic Church, that's communion. There's breaking of the bread quite literally. At the Last Supper, that's what Jesus did. So we have that term breaking bread that we still use, not breaking bad, breaking bread. And and it's sort of like seen as this olive branch, like let's break bread together.
Exactly.
In other words, it doesn't even mean let's have bread, but it's like let's sit down and see each other as humans. And
exactly. And not to veer off too much, but I think, one of the things that I was tasked with trying to put together in my dramaturgical practice for this show was answering the question of why is this show still relevant today and why are we choosing this as part of our season at Ninth Hour? Why should people come and see this story? And I feel like, as you said, Charlie, coming together and sharing that community through food, through laughter, through friends and family, through our relationships that we have with folks is so important. And in a post-COVID society, that's something that I think we realize we might have taken for granted in the past. There was all this time where we could not physically gather and be together with those people that we cared about so much. And seeing these folks have this opportunity to do it and seeing how insanely impactful it is for them, it really sends that home to us that yes, like our community, we need to lift each other up. We need to lean on each other. We need to be there for one another. And we need to put those differences aside and just see each other as people. Because at the end of the day, it's what it's about.
Embrace the outsider, embrace the stranger. And what was the play? What was
the play? Yeah, so the playwrights dedicated the show to strangers in foreign land for their power and their gifts. And I think because the other piece about Babette is that she is a refugee in this village because she was a revolutionist in France.
A pétroleuse.
What's that?
Pétroleuse. It's the French, like it's petrol. So it's like they threw gas and set fire to it. And you became a pétroleuse as like and that was like, but it's a revolutionist.
Yeah, she's a fire starter.
She's a French revolutionist. Yeah. And so she's like essentially like a political refugee. She fled. She fled during the French Revolution. And there's so many of those fleeing refugee themes that are mirrored. Not only like it doesn't even matter when you're listening to this theme continues to remain true and universal. Pretty much since throughout time since the play is set to when the short story was published to in the 80s when the movie was made to our modern day. This is a universal theme that there is always a tension between the other in whatever society they have found themselves in, and ultimately like the embracing of the other, and that the refugee is, a beautiful thing as opposed to a thing to be feared.
Exactly.
And that is it's a big part of how the villagers go through the journey of acceptance. Is at first they're like much more like obligatory tolerance.
Yes.
It's like, yes, Babette, you can be here. Great. All the way through to, in the final scenes after the feast, like the real understanding of Babette as a deeper person instead of just the surface, like, well, she's our maid of all work and she came from France and she lives here now. There's a real, true, deep understanding and knowing of Babette, both as like a chef and an artist. After she shares the feast.
So Babette is an artist.
She is. So Babette.
Why? Yeah, tell me more.
So part of Babette's backstory is that she was a chef at a place in Paris called the Café Anglais.
Yes.
And so she's not only just I was a head chef at a restaurant. It is like, I was head chef at a fancy, expensive restaurant.
Yeah, like one of the most prestigious in Paris.
Yes.
Oh.
And as a woman in, the 1860s, 1870s, roughly. And so that's a big deal.
Yes.
And then in her more like stripped down days of living with the sisters and making her little bread soup and her split fish soup and stuff, like the sisters, Martine and Philippa, they do a lot of charity work in providing food to other members of their community, but they provide food in like a very practical, you don't have bread, I give you bread.
Yes.
And Babette is more of a, you don't have bread, I give you croissants. And her approach to those things is like, yes, I can deepen the joy and I can deepen the offer that I have for you through her artistry. Babette also does reflect and call herself an artist in the text. It is rooted in the text and in her journey that she feels connected to cooking for others as an art, which there are definitely some people hate doing that, but there are other people who like would 100% identify with Babette in that cooking for other people and having hosting other people at your table and putting a plate of food in front of them that you cooked for them out of love and artistry is like a real joy and
they derive pleasure out of that.
Yeah. And
I know people like that actually.
My partner is just like that.
Yeah?
Oh, really?
And it gives him such a personal sense of fulfillment and satisfaction to see people enjoying the food that he prepared. And I think Babette is similar in that way.
Babette
as well.
is very similar. And I think the understanding of the word artist as we know it is like, well, I don't necessarily think everybody would think of chefs as artists. I would disagree as a person who like really admires food and especially really high end, very well curated restaurant food is like
the way it looks, the way it tastes,
and everything from like the color of the plate they put it on to the color of the napkin you're eating with to the wine they pair it with. All of those decisions, all of those micro decisions, all the way through that experience is decided by like the team that designs the menu, and that is artistry. And Babette talks about, in her final words, and when she reflects on this as an artist and what it means to her as an artist, is that art is meant to be seen, and all of those years that she was doing it in a little more subversive way and like sneaking the croissants into the bottom of the basket, or like sprinkling salt into the soup and seasoning it better than the sisters ever did, is she those are appreciation moments, but she gave the feast to the villagers as a gift, and that the enjoyment, and that is the thing that satiates her as an artist, and that she will always, it doesn't matter for her earthly goods don't matter to her, because if she can cook for other people, she has everything that she needs as an artist.
How long is she with them in this community, roughly?
It's like 12 to 14 years. It's a little loose. It's somewhere in that they sort of refer to it as like she came to us 12 years ago, and then the feast is like sometime after that. So
quite a while.
Quite a while.
Oh yes.
Yeah, enough to become part of the community.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And how does she go about giving this feast, like in the plot? Like, how does that happen?
Yes. Okay. So she...
Like, I thought she was a refugee with no money.
Yes. Yeah, she is a refugee with no money. She has one friend back in Paris who enters her name into the annual French lottery. And one year her name comes up and she wins the French lottery.
10,000 francs.
Yeah, 10,000 francs, which is a lot of money. Nice. And we did the math. We're like, we're talking like it's a lot of money. It's like we're somewhere like over $100,000, over $100,000.
Yeah, okay.
And then she prepares what she created as an original dish for the Café Anglais, and if you had have gone for a table of the size that she prepares that meal for to the Cafe Anglais, that would have been what the cost of it was. So she spends all of her lottery winnings to travel to France, which is also interesting, which is something that they like glaze over, that she just like goes back to France for like 2 weeks. From Norway, picks up a bunch of quails and then comes back, which is huge. It's a huge moment for Babette as a character to return to the country that you fought for as a revolutionist, that has exiled you, that you, so she goes back to.
It's not just throwing together a meal; it's like an event.
It's a huge event. Okay. She's got menus, she's got lists, she's got animals, she gets fancy French wine that the people at these villagers have probably never seen wine like she would have brought from France. And so she goes to France, she packages it all up, she brings it back with her to Berlevåg, and then she sets out to prepare and serve the dinner for everybody.
Wow. And then, so the feast then in the play is quite an important moment, I would have guessed.
Arguably, it is for sure the moment of transformation and the moment of true joy that occurs in the show. There's another character in the show who knew of Babette's work in France and at the Cafe Anglais and is able to sort of bring it like full circle, where not only Babette has to talk about her own work and explain why it's important, but to see the appreciation from someone who experienced it before the Cafe Anglais would have been destroyed from the revolution. So,
and Katie, so tell us some of the themes that jumped out at you as you were researching and providing some dramaturgy for the cast and SHAUNA?
Yeah, I would love to. And it's actually funny that we were just talking about the feast, because one of the things that I felt like was most important throughout this story to me that really jumped out was the idea of selflessness and sacrifice. And I feel like Babette preparing this feast is a total example of that. It highlights that theme of self-sacrifice. She spent literally all of her lottery earnings on this community of people who really initially didn't seem very appreciative of it. I mean, they went to this feast out of a sense of obligation and wanting to seem polite, not wanting to offend.
Because they wouldn't have had food like that before.
Exactly. But her doing that, I feel like, shows how true generosity often involves personal sacrifice. And by her doing that, as we said, it changes the entire community forever. Another thing that I felt like was really important through my reading of the text was the idea of grace and redemption. And I think the feast is a great symbol of grace as well, because it's offered without any expectation of anything in return. And through this gift, the villagers experience this kind of spiritual awakening and renewal that they've never had before. And it offers them redemption from this very rigid, honestly kind of joyless life that a lot of them have been living for all this time. Another one that's huge, and it ties in perfectly with Ninth Hour's mission statement, is the relationship between art and faith. As we said, we were talking about Babette's culinary skills, her cooking as an art form, and it blends passion, skill, and care all together because she's using this art as a gift for other people around her. And that theme of art as a divine gift is explored through her transforming food into something that's transcendent rather than ordinary, which is something that they experience from time to time. Right?
Wow. Sounds like a story for Ninth Hour.
I know, right? And another thing that I thought was really cool was the power of beauty. And that's something that Ninth Hour has talked about as well, too. The power of beauty and the sensory experience. So the sensory experience of the feast itself, the taste of this food, the smells, the textures of the food, all this new stuff that they've never had before, like you said, Charlie, that serves as a reminder of how life is beautiful. And it's a great contrast to the austerity of the villagers' lives. And I think that that theme underscores the idea that beauty and joy are very much interconnected with divinity. So the last two that I would say were really, really pivotal for me would be the idea of transformation and renewal. We've talked about it so much already.
Right.
The feast leads to this complete, not only spiritual, but emotional transformation in the villagers. They break down all of these old grudges. They're willing to forgive each other for past slights. And they really come together for the first time in a really, really long time since the dean's passing, to be honest.
And he was like the leader of the community?
He was the patriarch of the community.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the real pillar.
He was the glue. He kept them, like after he died, you mean they fractured a bit? Or they?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that Martin and Philippa have been trying kind of in vain to bring them back together through his teachings. But at the end of the day, it took someone to really shake things up, to make a positive impact on all these people. And I think that it shows how an act of love or kindness can rejuvenate you, can bring new life to your soul. And the last one that I would say is very, very major is the idea of cultural clashing and differences in culture. So there's this big, big contrast between Babette, her different beliefs, her different spiritual ideals, her different cuisine, even.
Big city, big chef.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the villagers' very simple, stripped back lifestyle. That really highlights the tension that exists then, now, unfortunately, probably in the future between different cultural worlds, but more hopefully, the possibility of finding common ground through mutual respect, understanding, and true welcoming and hospitality. And from a Canadian perspective, that idea made me feel really hopeful because it almost seemed like a reference to meaningful reconciliation, which is something that we are still working on to this day.
Yeah, no, thanks. Well said, Katie.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like I know what there's just so much about the story that I find like moving. All these themes, for example, this idea that, you know, pleasure. I mean, I read a book one time about, you know, pursuing God and sort of like or the divine, like in the spirit of pleasure. Like, so that a lot of people, like, you know, like that I've met or worked with, you know, have, have religion or faith, but there's not a lot of joy going on, not a lot of pleasure going on. And I understand where that's coming from, you know, people wanting to be obedient sometimes to a particular way of life or to what they believe God wants for them. But then like sometimes what's great about pleasure and beauty, which one of the episodes is going to be all about for this series, and I'm very excited about it, like the connection between pleasure and beauty. I'm really looking forward to digging into that. So it's like pleasure is like the enjoyment of the meal in the moment. It's like physical. It's like pleasurable. It tastes really good. But what's going on in the room is beauty.
Yes.
It's like not aesthetic beauty. It's like transcendental beauty.
Exactly.
Like the transformation, the reconciliation, the redemption, the grace. And there's this great line that is repeated over and over in the play that I love. And it's like when righteousness and bliss kiss.
Yes.
And I'm viewing it like through the lens of like righteousness being a sort of like a piety and an obedience, and a sort of self-sacrificing life, I guess you could say. Like Shauna, like you were saying, like they do charity work and like, these are righteous people, like they're good people.
Yes.
But they're missing out on the bliss of life. And I just love that that's in the play, the bliss of eating this 4 or 5 course meal, the bliss of
and all that wine,
color and wine. And and then, many could argue you go too far with pleasure and in a hedonistic way, it becomes selfish and narcissistic. And that's certainly true. Like there's always like a perverse angle, right, to the enjoyment of pleasure, I would say, but in itself, not bad. And a lot of people who've danced for the first time or had sex for the first time, they speak about they speak about how it can it opens up their soul sometimes. It opens up something they didn't know existed, or just being like loved for the first time or cared for the first time maybe, or embraced despite your difference or otherness, being embraced by a community for the first time, or by friends. Like it's just so beautiful and full of bliss and righteousness all combined in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think, Shauna?
There is this one scene that is not attached to the dinner. It's earlier in the show where we're still developing Babette's and the sisters' relationship, where Babette stands up one morning and says, the curtains in the living room have frayed and I'm going to fix them. And I want your permission to fix them.
Oh.
And the sisters are like, oh, I hadn't noticed, but I guess if you have done your other chores, it's fine. And Babette is like, yes, I have done everything else I need to do, and I'm going to hem these curtains.
I have time.
And I have time. I will make the time. And I think there's such a contrast between the sisters and Babette in that moment where the sisters haven't even noticed that the curtains are starting to fray, where Babette's like, eye for the visual and for the details and for the enjoyment of your own living space. The sisters probably would have let that curtain continue to fray until it fell off of its curtain rod and then done something about it.
Exactly.
Whereas Babette saw it well in advance and took care of it and improved the living situation for this. And she fixed a fraying curtain, but it's about the small details, about improving their lives. And I think there's this difference in the sisters, and this is part of the whole like contrasting thing between the community and Babette and how they transform after the dinner, is that the sisters are comfortable with practical and good enough. We provide people with meals that are satiating and nourishing, but whether or not they're deriving pleasure from them is not important to us.
That's not their concern.
That's not the concern. But we give everything that we have to all of these meals, much like Babette does. Babette gives everything that she has to the feast. The sisters give everything that they have in order to prepare the bread soup and split cod soup that they give everybody. They prepare for the villagers. Yeah.
Delish.
With just a little bit of salt. And Babette approaches those things from, not only can I provide you with the bread soup and a split cod soup and sustenance for your day-to-day life, I can also increase the pleasure and the joy that you have in those things. She seasons the soup better than the sisters did. She puts the croissants in the bottom of the basket because she, instead of making just buns, like putting some flour and water together and making bread, she makes croissants. So there's this level of elevation and small joy and small bliss, because as soon as you start talking about joy and pleasure and bliss, you think the first things that come to mind are this far end of the hedonistic
a negative
scale,
connotation.
The negative connotation, right? As opposed to the reality is, if your house looks good, you feel good, and if you have properly salted food, you enjoy it more.
Yeah,
whereas the sisters are so austere in their approach to it that they're not even taking joy and pleasure in just properly seasoning their food, or it's this is the way that we do it, this is the way that it's done, and this is good enough. It's practical and it's fine, but it's not. There's just this. Babette just has this she put salt on it.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's such a simple addition, and it's I think we all have it's nice when you have someone in your life or friends or something, they come to your place or whatever, and they're just what is that? And you're using this pot from 30 years ago. And they're just I'm going to get you a new pot. And you're no, really, no. I'm going to get you a new pot.
Yeah.
It's your doorknob's broken, I'm going to fix your doorknob or whatever.
Yeah. Never.
And some of us just, resist sometimes.
Yeah.
It's good enough. I like what you're saying. It's good enough. But there is something to be said, and certainly a belief in some faith circles that, that God wants the best for us. And I mean, everything around is created, and then there's a responsibility to it all, but there's an enjoyment of God's creation, God's gifts like food, color, nature, all sorts of good relationships and friendships and music, and it's such a shame to deprive oneself of those things, feeling feeling like you're sinning, if you enjoyed that meal a little little too much.
Exactly.
And there's always excesses, of course, right? But I just love how like salt was the thing that's like, oh boy,
don't put too much salt in that bread soup. Well, and it's funny. I just think that there's this like space of you got to enjoy it. If it's not fun, why are we doing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as simple as like just living your life. You deny yourself just like even the small enjoyment of like reading fiction. Right? Just the small enjoyment of like reading fiction, or I keep going back to the properly salting your food because it's relevant to, it's just relevant to Babette. Properly salting your food. There's like so much like small enjoyment in those things. It's like, have fun, enjoy it. Like I think this story is all about just beauty in the mundane. Yeah.
That
it so is. Yeah.
That you can, no matter how austere, no matter how deprived your life may be, beauty will persevere. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
It just exists naturally in life. Yeah. And Babette is the one who really helps all these folks to realize that for the first time. It's really inspiring.
Well said. Well said. And like anyone can like, the beauty is limitless. Anyone could like bring it into a community, to a relationship, to like we have the power as individuals to generate the beauty.
Yeah.
To be carriers of it, to spark change in people's lives or in the world even, right? You've given me so much to think about. I'm so excited that the remaining episodes in the series will touch upon, dig deep actually into these various themes. One is going to be beauty and pleasure, refuge and sanctuary. We're going to dig deep into. We're going to dig deep into cultural exchange and the importance of strangers, taking in strangers, hospitality, and we're going to talk about the beauty and art of hospitality. I'm just looking forward to like digging really deeply into all these important themes from Babette's Feast with some special guests and other artists involved in the production. So it's just going to be great. So before we close up, any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners would be greatly appreciated. Shauna, do you have any last things you want to let people ponder as the episode closes?
Oh, I just think that to close, I'll say this. I think theater is one of the things that if they had put on a show in the community, that the community would have been, this community in the story would have been like, we can't engage in this like pleasure and in the joy and in this, because that's not, it's the outsider of it. So I think there's the meta-ness of this show as well. Come see theater.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Very good closing. Come see the play.
Come see the show.
Please.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Katie, what about you? Final thoughts for the listeners?
Well, I mean, I'm so excited to dig into these future episodes. I'll certainly be tuning in. I'll also be coming to see the show at the Gladstone Theatre. It's going to be so epic. So many friends and new friends who are bringing these amazing words and characters to life. I would just say, when I was closing out my dramaturgical notes, after I'd gone through the question of why the play is important, the themes, the symbolism, the motifs, just to kind of wrap it up into a single sentence, which was difficult for me, as I'm sure you figured out. I like to talk.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yay. So what I had written as my final sort of sentence was that all these elements combine to create a rich, nuanced narrative that explores the intersection of generosity, spiritual awakening, and the simple pleasures of life. And I think that's something that we can all relate to. So come on out.
It's a much better closing comment than mine.
I wrote it out first. Hey, that doesn't come off the dome. Don't worry.
Oh, well said. Beautifully said. Well, thanks so much, Katie, for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. And thank you, Shauna, for joining me today.
Thanks.
This has been Telling the Story, a podcast dedicated to exploring faith, spirituality, arts, and culture, hosted by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for joining us for our podcast series discussing the themes and ideas expressed in the story of Babette's Feast. You can listen again to this and all our podcasts through YouTube, Spotify, and directly on our website, ninthhour.ca. Be sure to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter to be the first to receive exciting announcements, opportunities, and behind-the-scenes content. We hope you'll join us again on Telling the Story.